Hello. We hail from the great state of Illinois, 2 cornfields over, right? From the best city in the Union, Chicago. And I say this with confidence and not with one bit of irony. I've got the best job in the room. My name is Paul Coffey. I'm the Vice Provost and Dean of Community Engagement at the School of the Art Institute, and I get to work with these two. So, just as we start, I wanted to actually take a sidebar here and tell you about a recent paradigm shift at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. We have a continuing studies program that services over 3,000 students a year. Majority of those are in the summertime. We have restructured our continuing studies program to be a department at the school, right? So what does that mean? We have no longer require them to do their own marketing, their own recruitment, their own financial aid. We have pushed that off to all the appropriate departments, and we've asked them simply to concentrate on programming, to work hand in hand with our degree programs. So we have a dean of undergrad, a dean of grad, and a dean of continuing studies. They work with the programs. They develop programs that complement what's happening in the degree program. The reason I say that is that Doug and Kate are going to be able to talk to the intersections of continuing studies in their programs. So, in my office, I am responsible for the Shapiro Center of Research and Collaboration, which Doug is the director. Continuing studies, as I said, all academic budgets, all academic personnel. So my office is a nexus. It's not about me, it's about what my office can do. So my office is able to reach deeply into the academic program, is able to reach deeply into our academic budgets, and it's able to pull everything together and be able to mechanize the institution. One of the neighborhoods that we are working with, I'm here to talk about today. And before I talk about it, I want to tip my hat and acknowledge that we're aware that we're standing on the shoulders of other programs that are doing this. Otis, right? The Portland State. So, talked to Portland State. What was his name?
Saquon Judge.
And we were talking about how does Portland State start to engage a community. And we were talking about how do we align our resources with a singular neighborhood in the city of Chicago. So we, at the same time that I'm having these conversations, we're invited out to North Lawndale to a foundation called Home and Square. And just a real quick history of North Lawndale, first settled by the Czechs as the city was settling. Ooh, I got to show you a picture. Okay, so there's the city of Chicago, there's North Lawndale, first settled by Czechs. Then by 1950, it was 90% Jews and 10% others, 120,000 residents in that little square. The Sears Roebuck Company's there. They have their major headquarters. Their warehouse is 5-acre building on a 55-acre site. When it was Jewish in 1950, Golda Meir lived in this neighborhood. By 1960, it has lost half its population. It's 90% African American, and this is where Martin Luther King moved to when he moved to the city of Chicago. So each 10 years, each decade, it loses another half of its population. By 1980, it's 30,000 people in this part of the city, and it's destitute. Sears decides to move out, pulling all the manufacturing, all of the warehouse out, and Charles Shaw and Kristen Dean walk in, and the CEO of Sears says, "What can you do with this 5-acre building?" They said, "We're going to tear it down, but we're going to keep the tower, and we're going to make it into a campus where we're going to build multi-family income housing. We're going to build a community center. In that community center, we're going to bring together a bunch of nonprofits. There's a largest free health clinic in the park districts there. There's a pool. There's a gym. There's also the Crown Center for Sexual Education, where all the CPS, Chicago Public School kids go for their sex ed." So it becomes this anchor for this community. As we adopt, or as we align our resources with this, I say to the School of the Art Institute, this is our default neighborhood. All of our co-ops, all of our internships go here first. If you can't find it, you go somewhere else. All of our teaching, student teaching goes here. If you can't find it, go somewhere else. We start to use this as our default part of this city. One of our core values, one of our audacious core values is simply the word Chicago. We want to know that we are embedded deeply in this community, in this city, and in this community in particular. Okay, so it's important that I said earlier, I was challenged, why did you pick North Lawndale? And simply, we were invited. We were invited by civic leaders, we were invited by community members, we were invited by the business community, and we were invited, most importantly, by Kristen Dean, the president of Holman Square. She has her final act for her master plan for this is to develop the tower. You see the tower in the upper corner. It's a 14-story tower. We're taking a floor of that tower, and we're partnering with other nonprofits to bring programming to this part of the city. Some of our nonprofits are Free Spirit Media, Breaking Ground, UCAN, which is a transitional program for students or for children that are just out of juvenile homes, and North Lawndale Employment Network. So, I always say when I'm doing orientation for the students, you don't come to be deaned by me, you come to be taught by them. So I want to clear the stage, I want to make way for first Doug and then Kate. Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about some more Chicago projects. So as Paul mentioned, I'm Douglas Pancoast. I teach architecture and direct the school's Shapiro Center for Research and Collaboration. Our time here is really short, so I'm going to try to get right to it. I'm going to move and speak at lightning speed. So why project-based learning frameworks in art school? This is a question that we've all asked and answered. We've seen some really fantastic presentations about that subject matter, both structure and content here today. But as we've done this at the SAIC and in my department, Architecture, Interior Architecture, and Design Objects, the very name of which implies a multidisciplinary approach to art and design education, we've tried to keep track of in kind of precise dichotomies what we used to do, what we ought to be doing, how collaboration and project-based learning frameworks both anticipate and help usher in expanded fields for creative practice. And here a couple of ways, or a few ways in which those dichotomies have been resolved into language. And yikes, it's a screen full of text, but we're actually going to only look at a couple of them. And I'll try to unpack these as I describe two other Chicago projects that have been facilitated through the school. So the first one is the Array of Things. We call it the AOT. So the AOT is a collaboration between students and faculty in the architecture program and the departments of sound and art and technology studies at the school, with research scientists from Argonne National Lab, the Urban Center for Computation and Data at the University of Chicago, the City of Chicago, also is one of our partners, to design and deploy a new community technology. So the AOT is a system of small street light-mounted environmental data collecting nodes deployed in the City of Chicago to be used as a collector of data for urban science and shared as open data for community action. Data, rows of columns and numbers on city temperature, humidity, air quality, light, sound, pedestrian and vehicular motion, will be sampled and made available for urban research and Chicago citizens. If we think denser cities are a pathway to sustainable futures, we have to study them and we have to use technology to do so. The City of Chicago has a robust, free, and constantly evolving open data portal to receive data collected from the Array of Things system. It pre-exists our project. Data collection strategies have been reviewed by the ACLU and the EFF to ensure proper privacy protocols. Scientists and citizens can access the free and open data to learn more about local and particular elements of city locations. Where is the air quality poor? Where is the city hotter due to urban deforestation? What city sidewalks are more icy than others? What city streets have a host of safe liveliness? What animal species emitting particular calls via sound exist in what locations? The urban instrument will provide scientists with data at a level of granularity previously unavailable. But critical for dealing with 21st century urbanization, the SAIC crew has consistently and sometimes ruthlessly brought the voice of design, culture, participatory processes, discussion of privacy and surveillance and community value to the project. It turns out that when you fill a city full of data collecting sensors, that people notice and they have opinions on that, given the current climate of surveillance. The project opportunity grew out of an interaction that I had and started with urban researchers as an architect interested in technical systems and their intersection with culture. Then became assignment work in a light and electricity technical class in our Masters of Architecture program, and it has now thickened to a full interinstitutional collaboration. The data node itself, the installed object, consists of electronic control components, sensors, wireless communication components, and power transformers and regulators in a custom designed enclosure with layers of UV-resistant, translucent, and NC-perforated composite materials for shading the light-emitting elements and providing a mass customizable substrate, literally a platform, for the introduction of neighborhood iconography. The system suggests the development of new location-based services, apps, where people do not have to share their personal data to the cloud to receive useful positional information in the city of Chicago. Future installations after a soft introduction will focus intensely on the capacity for the node element to provide direct interaction in situ via light and via sound. So we're learning as we deploy, place and asset-based approaches are more important than modeling. This is a way for us to kind of test an idea as opposed to modeling it. We've run a series of workshops with high school kids in existing summer and after-school programs with our partners at the University of Chicago to introduce the general subject of community technology and the value of data, both to learn how the AOT might be a platform for educational services and participatory design, but also to make contact with people in as many neighborhoods as we can and to learn from them what sort of data would be useful for their part of the city, a city often plagued with uneven distribution of resources. In those multi-day events, we work with participants to build small air quality data collecting devices from the ground up. They do the work. They engage the hardware and the software. They collect data. And then we can have a really meaningful discussion, a somewhat demystified discussion on community technology and value. So we're learning that systems of things are cool, but systems of people to create systems of things is actually much cooler. So the SAIC crew of faculty and staff and grad students with Argonne engineers have made lovingly handcrafted, like artisanal beer, 5 working prototypes to be deployed in the city. This will be added to 5 others that we've installed, really stripped down versions that we've installed at Argonne National Lab, and allows us to test the ruggedness of the device in a Chicago winter, as well as electronic component performance and data quality, that kind of stuff. So we're looking to have 50 deployed by the spring, and then pending NSF research instrumentation funding, a total of 500 working nodes deployed by the end of next year. So the full partner team is growing to include a whole variety of contributing component partners, and really supremely necessary in a true distributed collaboration. So I'm going to step out for a second. I now invite my colleague Kate Dumbleton to talk about the management studio.
Thank you, Doug. Hi, everybody. I'm really honored to be here today talking with all of you and here with the School of the Art Institute of Chicago to talk about project-based learning. And specifically, I am going to give you a very brief overview of the management studio curriculum in the Masters of Arts Administration and Policy Department at SAIC. This curriculum was developed from research into fields such as environmental studies, design, performance practice, as well as traditional management and leadership at a graduate level. It's also included a lot of my own experience in the field of arts administration for the last 20 years, and a lot of conversation and discussion with students and my experience teaching. The curriculum is now in its 2nd year of implementation, and this is just a quick slide to introduce you to one project we did last year with artist Jan Tichy, who was putting together a building-wide exhibition at the Chicago Cultural Center, and the students designed all of the public programming, which was more than 15 or so different projects and programs at the center, from youth education to symposiums and academic conferences. And they led and marketed and implemented all these programs as well. Overall, the management studio takes a systems approach, replacing siloed classes in areas such as marketing, fundraising, organizational management, instead integrates skill building in these areas into cross-functional workshops and team projects that intersect with the Chicago community and I hope soon well beyond. This diagram is a visual summary of the management studio. Across 3 semesters, the coursework and projects engage core skill sets and help students gain both generalized and specific skills and experience, as well as the opportunity to explore individual and group work as a continuous academic and practical dialogue. Examples of projects include developing and implementing public programming, marketing strategies for large exhibitions, prototyping various web strategies, cultural planning in neighborhoods, and designing organizational models for new nonprofits. We work on about 3 or 4 projects per semester at the moment, and that really shifts a little bit depending on who's in the cohort and how the teams are broken up. I just wanted to give you one example of a project we did last spring, which was with the Chicago Dance Makers Forum. This is a local consortium funding fellowships for choreographers. The project was to prototype ways for the organization to make the impact of its fellowships more visible to multiple constituents, including individual donors, the philanthropic sector, dancers, and the media. The students created 3 prototypes, which included data visualization strategies at various levels, as well as webisodes and a lot of different web strategies. And the organization is currently proceeding with a number of the recommendations made by students. So I broke down this crazy large thing into some smaller of the concepts. So these are websites, some visualization of the impact of these dancers on various elements of the dance ecosystem, different demographic data. And I'll close by talking about another project which Paul alluded to a little bit, and this is another image which I absolutely love of the Home and Square area back when the Sears and Roebuck factory was still there. The management studio, and here is a current picture of the community center in Home and Square. As Paul mentioned, Home and Square is a major initiative at the SAIC. The management studio is collaborating with continuing studies on a story share project following research identifying oral histories as a point of interest for the community. The story share concept was developed by 2 arts administration grads as a thesis project exploring storytelling as social activism and has been piloted in several areas in and outside of Chicago. These students are now alumni and are leading a management studio team to collect stories from Home and Square neighborhood. Next semester, we will work on prototyping a delivery platform for these stories, including a radio station, podcasting, and various other strategies such as that, and some kind of exhibition to give the stories back to the community. We also anticipate that the stories will support the continuing studies efforts to determine what future arts education program the SAIC will provide in the neighborhood. And to conclude, oh, this is a great picture of some storytelling. To conclude, these are some of the things I'm thinking about with Management Studio. Now I'm in my 3rd semester with it. Teaching as dialogue with professional practice. I think a lot of people have brought this up today, this idea that, sometimes I'm up in front of students saying, this is how you might do this, and talking about lecturing and leading discussions. And then later that same day, I might be sitting down with them as part of a team with them, and more in the way I might work with some junior staff. And then I'm also out in the field talking with our partners, our external partners, and in that case, it's really a very much real professional setting. So thinking about teaching and how that shifts at different times in these projects. Creating learning space for teamwork as a discipline, of course, this is something people have been bringing up all day, which is that, in general, people really feel like they're good at collaborating, and actually you really need to create a lot of space for people to practice that, to identify and make clear how they're going to work together, what individuals bring to a given team, how you're going to change when things change, how you're going to manage conflict, all of those things. Coaching for experimentation and risk, again, something that's been brought up a lot today. I use a lot of methodologies of improvisation around this, the idea of preparation in order to take a risk, and bringing my students to that place. I work with graduate students in arts administration, so they're all really type A. It takes me about 6 or 7 weeks to get them to even think about experimenting. And that's even although they really value experimentation in the artists that they work with. It's hard to make it a mirror. Empathy is a core value. We do a lot of really intensive listening programs and thinking about listening in a lot of different ways. Diversity is implicit and explicit in curriculum and projects. By that I mean who's coming to speak with the students, what are they reading, what kind of narratives are we talking about, and then also making these conversations about who's in the classroom and who's not in the classroom extremely transparent and happening as part of the course. Finding the groove of individual research and group work, so how the individuals step out and do their own part of a project and then come back in and trying to make that something that finds like a pattern and a groove and a rhythm. Developing external partnerships. This is extraordinarily important, as many of you know. You have to find partners who are, it's got to be a win-win. They really want, it's real work. These students are doing real work, and we're delivering real work. And at the same time, they have to understand where these students are coming from, and that part of this is a learning environment. And so they have to also think through mentorship in their own position. Integrating generative evaluation tools and change strategies into the project, so really thinking about along the way how we change when we need to. What does it look to benchmark in this kind of scenario, and what kind of ways are we allowing for all of this to happen? And then finally, preparing students to enter the future workplace. I want them to be able to work tomorrow, but I want them to change the future. And I'll leave it here. Thank you.
Okay, one final project platform, the GFRY studio, we call it the GFRY studio. So the GFRY studio is a Motorola-funded research and project production platform. It commemorates Motorola creative director Jeffrey Frost, the guy who developed the 4-letter naming nomenclature for Motorola products, Moto, Razor, that kind of thing. The studio has been cranking out provocative, multidisciplinary projects since its establishment at the SAIC in 2005. The reference to the title of our talk, the GFRY Studio has been an extremely important incubator for connecting existing initiatives, SAIC initiatives, and partnerships to emerging ones in order to make research and collaboration opportunities that could not be made but for that sort of consortia available to students and faculty. The GFRY is a 2-semester course. Project applications are submitted by faculty, reviewed by the deans and the provosts and the Motorola Foundation, accepted, then announced for student enrollment. Though the goal is to produce art and design projects and interventions with sophisticated cultural examination, each year the subject matter changes. The partner and resource provision changes as well. One year it might be these sorts of partners coming from science and technology. Other years, an infusion of outside knowledge and project frameworks from the humanities, or often both. This helps us instantiate and really deliver to students intimate experience with a variety of modes of practice, such that practice feels like and is structured as an idea delivery research system. Past studios have examined water as a cultural utility, light as an editable material and social commodity. Students don't shed their developing disciplinary knowledge and skill when they participate in GFRY projects, but they very quickly need to develop a responsiveness and discern how their ideas and abilities are part of a larger collective production framework. Other past studios have examined low energy living and what to do and how to be in a city in transition, eschewing notions that art and design, when mixed with other human enterprises, is instrumentalized as fulfilling the specifications coming from outside of creative practice. We think it should be with creative practice. So to make tactics for making new ways to interact with and add value to the world through art and design. This year's GFRY Studio, working with the William and Stephanie SAIC Distinguished Professor at the Astor Gates and his Rebuild Foundation, as well as the Chicago Park District, the SAIC is running an architectural design build studio. Students and faculty take a project from initial research all the way through fabrication and on-site building, which is still an amazing project-based opportunity in design education that has been around for a long time. So why the Park District as one of our partners? The answer is trees. So for years, the city has been removing ash trees because of the emerald ash borer insect invasion in the Great Lakes region. Thousands of trees are felled per year. The school has been storing some of those felled trees. The project team will use those trees into lumber and milled in Theaster shop, along with bricks reclaimed from the neighborhood to renovate an old ComEd substation in the Grand Crossing area into a community performing arts and residency center. Retool and recreate is the idea. So, okay, back to the original question, why project-based curricular structure in art and design school? These are the reasons. These are the things that we are coming to kind of understand and embody as a part of our value system. Practice as a platform. Designers and artists with social practices engage and activate application space, while larger collectives, governments, corporations, and institutions, that's where the school comes in, we're kind of like a government, provide for interoperation, macro-level interoperation, but with no overarching control. The institution can put people in proximity with one another around ideas and then see how that micro-activity unfolds. And then artists and designers must acknowledge that platform will affect and be affected by culture, and that the world is messy and full of conflict, and that this is an asset. Messiness and conflict is an asset when it's kept scale appropriate. If this isn't acknowledged, then we'll have technology and systems in our world designed for collectives and interactions that no longer exist, and nobody wants that. Thanks for listening. That's all we have today.